Purchase Treaty of 1790, and we as beneficiaries of the treaty must recognize our responsibilities, including our collective responsibilities to the land and water. Council, there is no approval of a supplementary agenda for this evening. And for disclosures of pecuniary interest, we do have a few. We have Councillor Solomon on item 17A, the high-speed fiber update, 18A, the Chatham-Kent Community Improvement Plan, and 19A, the encroachment agreement for 22 William Street South in Chatham. I also have a conflict for Councillor Hall on item 13B, the 2020 record of payments to council-owned vendors. And I am also assuming I have a conflict from Councillor Oche, Councillor Wright, and Councillor Bondi on the same report. Those are all the conflicts of interest I have at this time. Next, I'd like to move to deputations, and we have received one deputation this evening. It is related to report 18A, the Chatham-Kent Community Plan Property Tax Increment Equivalent Grant Application. This deputation is received from Reg Janur. Dear elected friends, earlier this week I was directed by Civic Center staff to contact Stuart McFadden. I was advised that you or a previous council had decided to end the vacancy rebate in 2020, ironically the year of COVID. Our building, the former Libby plant, suffered terrible financial losses when a number of our tenants were shut down in March. But for a brief time, we were unable to pay their rent through year end and to date. I was seeking to learn how Chatham-Kent was going to acknowledge the plight of landlords like ourselves with some financial assistance, given that the 2.4% tax increase was not in keeping with what each you as council had suggested, nor what we need. Then, to add insult to injury, it was reported in today's Chatham Daily News that on Monday you will consider a recommendation, presumably from administration, to provide tax grants equivalent to 100% of the increase in municipal property tax increases for 10 years. I have no problem with the enticing new business industry to our municipality, but do not feel it is appropriate that we, taxed at over $1,000 a week for the past number of years, get no help with the new guy the new guy gets a new fixed tax rate for 10 years. That's morally wrong. A learned person once said that we should make new friends, but keep the old, for new is silver, old is gold. We've been paying taxes here since 1948. Please think on this. Faithfully, Reg Janur. Mr. Mayor, that brings us to the consent agenda. And at this time, the following reports have been pulled by a member of council. We have 11A, pulled by Councillor Latimer. We have, 11C, pulled by Councillor Latimer. We have 13A, pulled by Councillor Harrigan. 13B, by Councillor McGrail. 14B, pulled by Councillor Latimer. 14C, pulled by Councillor Latimer. 14D, pulled by Councillor McGrail. 15A, pulled by Councillor Latimer. 15C, pulled by Councillor Latimer. 17A, pulled by Councillor McGrail and Councillor Harrigan. 17B, pulled by Councillor Harrigan, Councillor Kirkwood-White, and Councillor Latimer. 18A, we'll be voting on separately due to the conflict by Councillor Solomon. 19A will be voted on separately due to the conflict of Councillor Solomon. 19B has been pulled by Councillor Kirkwood-White. 19D has been pulled by Councillor Latimer and Councillor Carmen McGregor. And 19E has been pulled by Councillor Harrigan, Councillor Latimer, and Councillor Carmen McGregor. Therefore, we'll be voting on 14 reports in the consent agenda, those being 11A, B, D, 12A and B, 13C, D, E, 14A, 15B, 16A, 17C, F, and G, and those will be approved by one motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor McGrail and Councillor Finn, can I get you to put that on the floor, please?
Cheryl, I'd like to move that, please.
And I'll be happy to second.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll put them to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes.
Item 11C.
11C, Infrastructure Innovation Committee minutes from its meeting held on December 10th, 2019 and December 15th, 2020.
Councillor Latimer and Councillor Kirkwood White, can I get you to put this on the floor, please?
Certainly, so moved.
Seconded?
And then I have a question.
Councillor Latimer, to you.
Yes, I wanted to ask someone, maybe Brendan or Chris, with regard to number 2 on the December 10th minutes, there was noted that due to lack of success of one pilot project, there will be no further consideration to dual tender projects. It kind of sounds like you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So I wondered if this process cannot be considered again via the research and development process flowchart that's also in there, which is very good, by the way.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, it's Thomas Kelly, General Manager of IES. I'll answer that question. So first of all, the dual tender results that we looked at was really a comparison. I was on the Moores line, and in the first case, we used what was a design bid process where we did the engineering. So an engineer we hired went out and looked at all the various options available and then came up with the best design he thought possible. That was then sent out through a tender. The option 2 was really more like a design build process where we went to the contractors and said, here's our best solution, but if you have a better solution, please provide that to us. The results were that the option 2 with the contractors doing the engineering came out 23% higher. So it is true that that's our first case doing that. We made that comparison. We didn't see that there would be savings in this case, but we haven't ruled it out. We're looking for options for a design build. In this particular case, it turned out to be much higher. A lot of our contractors, in fact, all of them would have to hire out the engineering. And that's a lot of the added cost. But in this case, we didn't see that if we gave the contractor full control of the design and the manufacturing and the installation, that there would be a significant saving. So we haven't thrown out the idea. We're just looking for the right opportunity. Clearly, this was not the right opportunity, but we sincerely hope we're going to give it another try. Again, just to continuous improvement, trying to make that work for us. Thank you.
It's good to hear, Mr. Kelly. I'm glad to hear that. Actually, under the R&D process flowchart, I think but I want to suggest under the evaluation and implementation that you kind of put some statements there as to how you're going to prioritize participations and select trial projects, and then put a timeline with it. Would this occur annually or on just an ongoing basis as you see fit?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So our process right now is that we're throughout the year always looking for opportunities for new technology. Recently, we attended the OGRA conference, and those are the type of things we use, as well as vendors coming in to the municipality and presenting some of their technologies. So that occurs pretty much year round, but it's really at the beginning of the year that we select the best candidates to move forward. And that selection criteria is based on what is going to give us the lowest cost over the life of the product. So all of the things that we do, for example, roads, our bridges, we're looking at 75 years, 100 years sometimes. With roads, we're looking at 15 to 20 years in certain cases. So we're looking at how do we minimize that cost per year. So when we have all of these technologies in front of us, we look for, okay, where could we exactly use that technology? And we certainly prioritize based on the biggest bang for the buck, that if we invest in this technology, if it turns out to be successful, that's going to give us the greatest savings to the municipality. Right now, we have many new technologies. I'll be coming forward with an innovation report in the next month or so to council. And we have a number of these out in the field right now. We monitor them very closely, usually after a year or two, we have a pretty good feel for if it's going to be positive or not, the technology. But we're much more comfortable with a 5-year type period. So it's a slower than maybe hopeful of implementing new technology, but there's a really good reasons for that, is that we just want to be absolutely sure that the supplier and the contractor statements for durability and savings are truly going to be there, and we're not going to see added costs somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Anyone opposed to receiving this report? Hearing none. Motion passes. Item 13A.
13A, under information reports and routine approvals, we have small business tax classes.
Councillor Harrigan and Councillor Crew, can I get you put on the floor, please?
Yes, happy to, and then I have questions.
I'll second it.
Okay, Councillor Harrigan?
Great, thank you, Mayor Kenneth. Through you to Mr. Quentin Gord, can you just provide a little bit of context as to why it is that we are not moving forward with a recommendation on this report for the small business tax grant, and if it is something that we might consider in the future?
Thanks. I'm going to have Matt Torrance respond to this. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Thank you for the question, Councillor Harrigan. The province has announced this small business tax class, but they haven't officially published the regulations, so we don't know exactly all of the rules and guidelines that we're going to have to follow. For municipalities, or for our municipality, we need to set our tax policy each year in April in order to set our tax rate so that the final tax bills can go out. So we're not anticipating that we're going to have this regulation in time or before that will provide us enough time to do the proper analysis to implement something in time for April when we have to set our tax policy. And most municipalities in the province are in the same position. So our plan at this point is once the province publishes the regulation, we'll look at it in depth, consult with the other municipalities, and come back to council sometime before the 2022 tax policy is set.
Great, thank you very much, Matt. Unfortunate timing that we heard the provincial announcement, but don't always have all the details, but I can very much appreciate that. Those are all my questions, Mayor Caniff.
Anyone opposed to receiving the report? Hearing none, motion passes. Item 13B.
13B, 2020 record of payment to council-owned vendors.
Councillor McGrail and Councillor Pinsino, can I get you to put this on the floor, please?
Sure, I'll move to put it on the floor.
Second it.
Okay, Councillor McGrail.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Nothing here. I got the wrong number, so I'm sorry about that. All is good.
Okay, anybody opposed to the report?
Actually, I
Hearing
have
none.
a question.
Councillor O'Shea, you have a conflict on this.
Yes, but I meant to send this in, and there's a underneath of my name is an instant print shop, which is no longer around. So if you could take that totally off, that would be great.
We will do
Instant
that
print.
for the next
Yeah,
report.
instant print shop in Wallaceburg's gone. Thank you.
Duly noted. Thanks.
Okay, hearing nothing else, motion pass, or the report passes. Item 14B.
14B, tender award contract T20-360, McKay's Line over Fields Creek Drain, culvert replacement, Community of Howard.
Councillor Latimer and Councillor Thompson, can I put you on the floor, please?
So moved.
Councillor Bondi, can I get you to put this on the floor, the second, please?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Latimer, the floor is yours.
Thank you, through the mayor. I just wondered what the anticipated duration of this project would be once initiated.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. This is Brendan Faulkner, Manager of Engineering, Roads and Bridges. The duration of the project and the tender is 30 working days, so that equates to about 6 weeks.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Faulkner. Now, I just have one more comment too. While I don't disagree at all with the recommendations in this report, under innovation, it was not clear to me. The paragraph was worded at the end of page 3 and the top of page 4, why the corrugated steel pipe was ultimately selected over the precast concrete. In the future, would you consider providing a metrics chart that would just clearly identify why one method is preferable over the other in whatever particular situation you're reporting on?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. We'd like to apologize for that paragraph at the top of page 4. That was added in error into the report. So that was the paragraph that sort of outlined the pros of the concrete structures. And that probably resulted in some confusion as to why the next paragraph resulted or said we were going with CSP. So yeah, but in future reports, and we'll take that comment, and we'll try to be a little more clear and provide reasons for why one alternative was selected over the other.
Thanks, Brandon.
Hearing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes. 14B, Tender Award T20-303, Maintenance Hole Cover Rehabilitation, Community of Chatham.
That's 14C. Just confirm. Yeah, okay. Yes, can I get Councillor Latimer and Councillor Sakachi to put on the floor, please?
So moved.
So seconded.
Okay, Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, through the mayor. I think my question is for Mr. Chapika. I had done the math and I just wanted to hear from him with regard to each of these manhole covers are approximately $1,600 and change. And I'm here from my conversations with Mr. Brown that is a good price. But I wanted someone to comment on what type of manhole covers we're using. Is there any new technology here? I know we're using something called the self-leveling maintenance hole covers. So I wanted Mr. Chapika to comment on that. So that we often have complaints about our manhole covers lifting and causing grief for our vehicles. So Mr. Chapika, could you answer that or comment on that?
Through the mayor, thank you, Council Latimer. Yes, we're kind of excited about trying or using these manhole covers. Without getting too far into the weeds here, the manholes we're targeting are the ones on the main arteries in Chatham. Conventional manhole construction consists of a cast iron cover on concrete adjustment rings to bring them up to the level of the road from the manhole structure. This is a very rigid structure. There's two problems with this. The first one being the frost heave. The frost heave tends to separate the units over the years, which invites water infiltration. And once you get water, I don't have to explain to you what frost does with water. The second is because they're so rigid, when the transport trucks hit them, they can't stand the impact, and eventually the concrete units underneath the manhole cover break down. So the covers that we're proposing are a two-piece structure, which they sit right on the manhole structure on about a 2-inch rubber ring. And the cover of the manhole actually slides up and down, kind of like a sleeve inside this the base structure. So this sleeve actually rises and falls with the frost. And if it does experience shock from like a transport tires, the 8 tires on each side of the truck, it will flex. So that eliminates that constant deterioration of the manhole components underneath. We have tried, I think it was 2017, I was approached by the manufacturer of these manhole covers, and we tried 2 of them on St. Clair Street at Stone Ave. Public Works installed them under the direction of the manufacturer. There's a certain way you need to put these in. And to date, there are no problems with these manholes, or pardon me, maintenance holes whatsoever. They've standed up to the test. So we've decided to go ahead and go full force and use them in other areas where we have problematic manholes. Sometimes we have to go back 3 or 4 times in a matter of 2 years to repair manholes under conventional construction practices. As far as the price goes, these covers are approximately twice the cost of a conventional cover to buy. However, you have to consider the cost of the elimination of the concrete riser rings that go in. You also have to consider the cost of trying to get a conventional manhole cover precisely level with the asphalt. That's very hard to do. You need to be have a little bit of skill to do that. These these maintenance hole covers actually adjust when we do the final rolling of the asphalt with the roller, because they're so flexible. And I think that's going to improve a lot on the cost of it.
Thank you, Mr. Topeka. Lifetime of these maintenance hole covers are around 40 years.
Well, we haven't had them in 40 years, but I wouldn't be afraid to bet on they last 40 years.
Okay, thanks very much. I just wanted the public to realize.
We've had them in for 4 years, and we have opened them up, and we don't see any deterioration on St. Clair Street at all. They're still in prime condition, and these particular manholes that we on St. Clair are right in the tire tracks of the transports and the cars.
Mm-hmm.
And we have not, so far, we have not seen any deterioration of the manhole structure.
Thanks very much again for giving that detailed explanation. I just often think it's good the public recognize that Chatham-Kent really is taking the time to move forward and using innovative technologies and processes. I know Mr. Kelly just spoke. He was bringing a report forward, but I always, in this particular case, I wanted the public to know about these types of maintenance hole covers and why we thought it's a good use of their monies to go forward with this project. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, and like I said, we have tested them, and we're very happy with the outcome.
Will these being used as the new standard moving forward, and other manhole covers replaced in the future with this technology?
Thank you, Councillor. I have had discussions with the engineering group, and they've also been interested in our little pilot test project there, and they've also reviewed it. And it's my understanding they're considering using them on all of their reconstruction projects where traffic may be detrimental to the manhole covers, or maintenance hole covers, sorry.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes. Moving on to 14D, RFP award, contract R21-160, Mitchell's Bay Line Bike Lane.
Councilor McGrail and Councilor Foss, can I get you to put this on the floor, please?
Sure, I'll move to put it on the floor.
I'll second it.
The floor is yours, Councilor McGrail.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just want to take a second to say thank you for this project coming to hopefully a completion here. I know Mitchell's Bay Area Association has been working hard to get this off the ground and completed. And I've had talks with them, obviously monthly, if not more, and they're excited that, come hopefully June or July, we invite everybody to come down to Mitchell's Bay and take advantage of this new trail, because it really does complete an awesome trail system that's already here. So thank you to Mr. Bray and his group and everybody else on council for letting this happen. So thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes.
Item 15A.
15A, 2020 Integrity Commissioner Report.
Councilor Latimer and Councilor OJ, can I get you to put this on the floor, please?
So moved.
Seconded.
Councilor Latimer, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you through the mayor. I just wondered if we could have an update on where we were with regard to response to the Integrity Commissioner's recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Latimer, we have, if you recall, we did our workshop. All of council participated, and that was one of the breakout sessions was with regards to social media guidelines. So administration has drafted them, and we are looking to bring them back to council. We have listed them not necessarily as a policy, but as a guideline. And so I would anticipate that would come back to council probably in April.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes.
Item 15C.
15C, motion by Councillor Latimer, service review on service centers, municipal information desk, and customer service delivery.
Over to you, Councilor Latimer.
Thank you. I've just had some phone calls and questions, and I had a few questions myself for Mr. Quinton with regard to my motion and with item 17B, the Municipal Modernization Program grant application that would also involve service review. So I'm just wondering, should I put my motion on the floor with a seconder first? And then we can have some discussion. Alrighty, I'd like to move. I don't need to read it, do I, Judy?
Yes, if you could, please.
Okay. That administration conduct a service review on service centers, municipal information desks, and customer service delivery, and report back to council before fall 2021 prior to the formation of the 2022 budget. The service review should identify changing client habits, the movement to cashless payments and online transactions, and phone service delivery models. The service review should consider closing service centers, municipal information desks, or reducing, combining services to existing other municipal operations, hubs, and discussions should include other services provided at each location. For example, library services and police services, to determine if buildings could be divested. The report should review the Service Ontario offices and recommend options moving forward. And the service review should include engaging the community to determine what solutions make the most sense.
Councillor Solomon, can I, sorry, Councillor B. McGregor, can I get you to second this, please?
Yes, I'll second that.
Okay, Councillor Latimer, your floor is yours.
Thank you, through the mayor. As I said, I had some discussion with Mr. Quinton with regard to how this service review would coexist with the municipal modernization program grant reviews, and he's led me to believe that that we need to move forward with this my detailed service review, regardless of whether or not we proceed, that we receive the grant applicate or the grant funding. And that was my concern too. I thought about pulling it, but I want this service review to happen regardless of whether we receive monies for the other high level service review, because I think it's important that we come up with detailed operational directions, and those recommendations get brought back to council and approved in time to impact the 2022 budget. Perhaps Mr. Quinton could comment further on this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's Gord Quinton, Chief Financial Officer speaking. I think you provided a quite well of an explanation. There's sort of two different processes that can coexist at the same time. If councillor wishes to have a detailed service review on the service centers, municipal information desk, and customer service delivery, as per your notice of motion, that would get that detailed reviews beginning right away, and perhaps have recommendations coming to council in the fall or whenever they're completed that might be in time for future budgets. The other report that we'll be talking about later tonight is more of a corporate overview of our efficiencies and service delivery models, and may identify other areas that we want to do detailed reviews exactly like this one would be after that report's received in the fall. So this one has the capabilities of they don't have to be done separately of one another. They both can coexist at the same time, and there's no reason to wait on this one for the other corporate review to be done.
Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you, through the mayor. And I don't think I need to ask if there be any changes to this, but if they do this kind of a review on service centers and these other areas, will they be reviewing the staffing component that goes along with it? Will that be included in the report?
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to take that if you like. It's Kathy Hoffman, General Manager of Corporate Services. Yes, staffing will be considered as part of that service review. Councillor will be taking a look at both the service delivery model, what services and what the service delivery model is, which will then drive also to staffing. So that will absolutely be incorporated in the service review. And just by way of note, we have had a couple of service reviews in the past on the customer service area back in 2001 and again in 2013. And so certainly it's a good time, again, to review those and see the kinds of changes we can have given the changes of the landscape on customer service delivery.
Thank you, Kathy. And, you know, it may not mean any changes in staffing whatsoever. And I do believe that we have a lot of areas where we could be combining our services under one roof. So thank you. I look forward to the report.
Councillor Pinsonneau, followed by Councillor Bondy.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. In a lot of cases, the service centers in the small communities are the only link to the municipality. honestly, you can save money if you close them all. There's no question about that. But to me, that is their lifeline from, say, Highgate or Bothwell to the municipality. I think it's a little premature anyway to do this. This is going to come at some point. But with COVID right now, I think the numbers are a little bit skewed. And a year from now, we're going to be through all this COVID, and we'll know exactly where we stand. I think that's the time to make this happen. I just think things are going to get cut that maybe wouldn't have got cut. I just think it's premature for this. Thank you.
Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. I'm going to support this, of course. I think it's a good idea. I was involved in the, or witnessed, is probably a better word, the 2013 service review. And again, I'm going to support the motion. My only concern with this service review and previous service reviews is that we're asking administration to review administration. I believe that a third-party neutral consulting firm, perhaps, nobody likes that word, but I just found, just through my experience in 2013, that when we ask staff to look inside to find cuts, it's really not all that terribly successful, because you're asking employees to find reductions within their own departments. And frankly, if I was that person, I probably would be a little less apt to find reductions in my own department, because it's my department. So for as much as I support this, I just think we're going down the path that we went down in 2013. And I was a relatively new councillor at the time. And I was stunned that we were reviewing, and that was a really broad service review. I think it was the entire corporation was reviewed at the time. Maybe Kathy could correct me on that. I'm not sure, but I think it was the entire municipality, the service delivery, staffing levels, etc. It was a big deal. It went on for years. It cost an awful lot of money. And I just found, watching that process happen, that, we were kind of asking, staff to find cuts in their own department. And what came back was that there would be service reductions, but there was really no staffing implications. And most of what came back to council, as I recall, and I stand to be corrected on this, we didn't accept. Similarly, we didn't accept the COVID task force people that helped us out in the summer, put an awful lot of work into that one. We didn't really seem to accept much of that either. But and that was non-binding, I get that, but I'm a little concerned when we ask staff to look inside their own departments. It's just a comment, it's not a question, obviously, and I will support the motion, and I hope it does come back with some creative and productive ways to reduce our costs without affecting services too much. Because whenever there's going to be a cut, obviously there's going to be some service implications, and I think we kind of have to deal with that, other than, the idea that when staff comes back with reductions, it's typically, well, we're going to close an arena, a library, things like that. So I hope we don't see that kind of list of, the things that really hit home, similarly to what Councillor Pinson was just touching on. So I'm confident that staff will find creative ways to make this decision. But again, I really do believe it should be a third-party neutral firm that comes in and takes an objective look. And I don't know that staff can, and I'm not begrudging anybody, but it's tough for staff to have an objective look at their own departments and find cuts. You're asking for a lot there, but again, I will support, and I appreciate the motion. Thank you.
Ms. Hoffman, and then followed by Mr. Shropshire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Bondi, when you had asked about the service review that had taken place corporate-wide, so there was a number of individual service reviews that were taking place simultaneously. The customer service review was one unto itself. Out of the 2013 service review that took place, there was a reduction of 5 full-time equivalent positions during the course of that service review. Now, those were achieved through attrition, so important to make note of that, but that was as a result of changes in services and the changes in the way that the service was delivered specifically. So those particular review committees are made up of a variety of representatives across the organization, not just those that are in the operational area. And so there is some more neutrality, as you called it, different than perhaps a consultant, yes, but certainly neutrality throughout the organization with different levels of employees involved in that, and senior team members who represent not only the technical expertise area, but also the finance area, the delivery area, et cetera, et cetera. So certainly we would be looking to model something similarly again if we conduct this review in-house.
Mr. Shropshire, followed by Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just in response to Councillor Bondi, I did want to make sure that the taxpayers had also heard that administration actually believes it's our responsibility to look for efficiencies every year. And as an example, in the last budget presentation, we came to council already with 5.5 full-time equivalent cuts and an additional several $100,000 in increased efficiencies. So we absolutely think that's our responsibility. Can we do better and have outside expertise shine a light on things and do better? Absolutely. That's one of the reasons Mr. Quinton's report is on the table tonight, to ask for a modernization grant. So we're happy to go to school, but I wanted our taxpayers to know that your administrative team looks for and has been delivering efficiencies for at least the last 10 years that I've been here, and I suspect before I arrived as well. And we're committed to that each and every year. So we would welcome the opportunity to present to members of council opportunities for increased efficiencies. And I think Councillor Pinsonneau and Councillor Bondi were quite right that sometimes those do have an impact on service levels, and we're respectful that that's exactly council's responsibility to strike the right balance between a service level and a budget implication for our taxpayers. Thank you, Your Worship.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. Don, thank you very much for that. And Kathy, thank you. And Don, I believe you're correct. And I would suspect the public expects that we're conducting a service review daily, right? That's our job, is to find efficiencies. I don't know that we have to call upon it. You know, this motion does call upon it, but I would suspect that as a corporation, like any other corporation, we're looking for efficiencies and ways to improve service at reduced cost at all times. And Gord had tweeted something out, or maybe it was a Facebook post or some sort of bad, social media thing that I unfortunately seem to follow too often. But Gord had said, we're daily doing this. We're trying to do this every single day. And I think that's important, Don, as you said, that the taxpayer realizes that we don't necessarily need a notice of motion, in our daily operations, well, not mine, but you guys, to be finding these efficiencies. And I agree with that. And this sort of motion and an internal service review, which it is an internal service review, effectively just highlights what I think we're presumably doing daily. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Councillor Sakachi, followed by Councillor Foss.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just a quick, kind of more of a comment, I guess, and I will ask Ms. Hoffman for a quick response. But to some of the responses that have been said, isn't this kind of basically, we're looking at reductions and other ways to do things. This is kind of what's happened over the year with COVID, and I just wanted to see, in this, in this motion that, can it be captured to council kind of how this year went with some of the closures. And I know Kathy's team has done a great job in trying to go through, over the hurdles that's, been caused by COVID. I just wanted to see like how the public generally commented on things, how they were going with so many centers closed, and if they were still able to, function things, especially with our, our older adults that may not be as computer savvy.
Certainly. Thank you, Your Worship. A couple of points to that, Councillor Sakachi. The one thing I would say is that, first of all, the service review we won't based on based on that, sort of anomaly of what happened through COVID. But I will tell you that probably the deepest irony of this from a customer service perspective is that our customer service interactions, the numbers of calls, the number of interactions we have with customers are at an all-time high through COVID this year. We have had unprecedented numbers of transactions and interactions with our customers this year. They are certainly changed in the sense that we're doing many more of them by phone, some online. Obviously, less has been in person, but we have been shocked, frankly, just to see how high the volume actually is. So I think what you will see is that as society sort of changes around the way in which we deliver service and the way the customer wants us to deliver service, meaning more online options, et cetera, we're going to see a shift in the way that customer service looks. Our customers in this past year have said to us, certainly we did hear feedback that those in every area that enjoy, whether it's a municipal information desk or a service center, those who visit those locations certainly very much appreciate those in each one of the wards that they are located in. That said, during COVID, what we did was try to do our best to consolidate services in places so that we were in a situation that we could operate those centers, those offices in a way that kept staff safe and customers safe. So in smaller areas, we weren't able to be open and still be able to meet all of our health and safety requirements. But certainly what we tried to do was convert services that we could to online, make sure that we could open up other locations with precautions in place that would allow the public to come and visit. And we've just been continuing to pivot, as the term has been used in this last year, to figure out how best to provide services in a timely manner so that customers still get the services that they need. And I think that this year will inform us in terms of, as we go through a service review, about what are the opportunities to be able to provide services in different kinds of ways. It doesn't necessarily have to mean less service. It just might mean options to consider for delivering them in different ways. Does that answer your question, Councillor Sakachi?
Yeah, actually, it does, and I think that your comment at the end is exactly what I was, trying to move to. Is that not necessarily we're not going to be providing the service. It's just that it may have to look a little bit differently. I think that going through the budget process numerous times now is still a relatively new councillor. One thing that I've heard Mr. Quinton, as well as many of our other councillors, say is that the challenges in Chatham-Kent is because we are a very rural community, has a lot of duplicated services, but it's tough because you're torn as a rural councillor, because we know how important our municipal centers are, and we're very lucky in South Kent to have I think an area that should be reviewed and mimicked in regards to having our library, our police, as well as our our post office and our municipal center there. So I think that we really have to just look at all these things and endeavor to do our best to try to find ways to capture some savings, and it might mean the service might be different, but we might just have to provide it the same level of service, just in a different way. So I really appreciate your comments and look forward to at least seeing this report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Foss, followed by Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm somewhat in support of this review, but I want to make sure that we're not just looking at the financial aspect of it, but also the impact that it'll have on the local downtown businesses. If we move some of the services to the bigger centers, our rural communities won't be coming to the smaller ones. And I think that a service center is really an anchor in the downtown business area. So I want to make sure that that aspect is considered when they review this. The one question I have is, do we have any idea how much work and time will be involved by administration in doing this?
Thank you, Your Worship. I wish I had the answer immediately to that, Councillor Foss. What I can tell you from our previous service reviews that we have done is that they generally require, several months of work. So this particular motion, should it pass, talks about having a service review complete such that any opportunities for looking at budget impacts for 2022 could be considered as part of the roll-up in that budget process. So we would be looking to complete this service review over the course of the next number of months in preparation for a fall discussion with EMT and then with council from a budget perspective.
And the final report will come to council for final approval?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Hall, followed by Councillor Kirkwood White.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. Councillor Bondy's question sparked a couple questions in my mind too. So thanks for that, Councillor Bondy. And I think Councillor Foss actually just touched on it a bit. So my first question is, what this would kind of cost? I know, Kathy, you touched on, staff time, and there's not, additional funds being asked for to conduct this review. But can you put a dollar figure amount on it, or is that is it basically just a staff time type thing?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have a dollar figure right now, Councillor Hall, but what I can tell you is the service review process. So yes, first of all, it would involve internal staff. It would be internal staff time, so there's not an additional cost. There's not an additional budgetary cost to it, keeping it in-house. But every good service review comes along with an analysis of the inputs that have been required to produce the service review. So certainly we're likely able to track some of that information as we go and share that as part of the review.
Excellent, thank you. And to follow up to that too, and I think you've already touched on this, Kathy, and Dawn as well. I appreciate what Mr. Shropshire said about always looking for efficiencies, and I think Gord's touched on this as well. But with this specific review, like what how is it exactly done? Is there a best practice that's followed on how this review is conducted? Is it following along with previous kind of processes that Chatham-Kent has followed with service reviews? Can you just touch on that a little bit more on exactly how this service review will be tackled?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Your Worship. So we will certainly model what we have done historically in terms of service review processes. We've used a really good framework that essentially involves bringing in a cross-section of members of the team across the organization, people who are behind the scenes users of the customer service, in front of, frontward facing customers, etc. And we'll sit down, and very first steps will be to define the scope of the project. And the scope of the project for us is largely going to be led by the words that are contained here in this notice of motion, in terms of considering what should be closed or not closed, what can be reduced or combined. And all of that will be led by an analysis of all of the data that we keep. In the customer service area specifically, we have significant numbers of pieces of data sets that we use to track things. So that's a helpful area to be able to be doing a service review in. So in part, we'll be basing it just on what the data tells us. And we'll be making some recommendations based on that. Layered into it will also be the considerations that Councillor Foss identified in terms of, well, what is the impact to the community to do that? Sometimes the closing of these centers aren't necessarily economically driven in the sense of just the numbers, the volume coming in and out of the office. So these are things to decide. But the other important piece in this one is that it's also going to involve the other stakeholders who are in these co-located locations. For example, right now, the way that the library has been delivering services, they too have had to make some adjustments through COVID, and whether or not this will also be a period of time that has guided them to think of some different ways that they could provide services, as well as our police services. So all of those parties have to be together in their service review, which is a little bit different than the previous reviews. The previous reviews really focused more purely on the customer service function. These ones have to combine a few in order to be able to see if there's opportunities to consolidate, build. And so what happens at the very end of that, all of the recommendations and options are evolved. We review them with the executive management team, and then we bring them forward to council for debate and decision.
Excellent, thanks for that. And maybe just one more quick follow-up. I know, and I think you touched on it again, and it sounds like that, I know Councillor Bondi brought this up about that. I know there was multiple service reviews done in, I think 2013 or maybe 2014. But what you just kind of said, Kathy, is that can you kind of take that as a bit of a lesson learned, I guess, from previous ones, that, you know, taking some of the, you know, things that maybe didn't work as efficiently in the past with these service reviews? Has there been lessons learned, I guess, that you can carry forward that you would utilize with this review?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So one of the things that we did do at the time, back when business plans, which were first implemented here at Chatham-Kent, and then business plans evolved into something we called service reviews. And so they have been an evolution of that. And at the end of that whole process, and Mr. Quinton can perhaps also comment on some of this, at the end of that whole process, the executive management team of the day, along with the senior management team of the day, sat and did debriefing sessions to talk about what has gone well, what has not gone well, and best practices adopted to go forward in the event that we had further service reviews. And like has been previously mentioned here this evening, these service reviews happen informally all the time on the administrative side of things. It's part of what is bred into the administrative culture of our teams, is to be always thinking about how can we be doing the work that we're doing and the service we're providing in any other more efficient way. So sometimes there's small gains, and sometimes when you have the opportunity to take a deeper dive, you can find other opportunities. And sometimes it really does involve the decision making of council, because it affects that end user, or that customer, the whole reason why we're here at all. Mr. Quinton, I don't know if you'd like to add anything to that.
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, just adding on that, service reviews have been ongoing. They never stopped. Some are more public facing, and this is a good example of one because it's service delivery to the customer, so it's a very public facing service. But there's many service reviews are ongoing, and they often will result in sometimes it's about financial savings, sometimes it's about doing things differently. And Kathy has mentioned the 2013 customer service review many times, but one of the things that came out of that, or shortly after, was the concept of a virtual call center that did create quite a bit of efficiencies and a different way of providing service to customers. So I guess just reiterating that every service review is different because of what it's looking at, and we'll have different people involved, and sometimes it's more on the financial side of squeezing out savings, and sometimes it's more on is there a better way to deliver the same service or deliver a higher level of service at the same cost. So every review has a different purpose, a different scope, and we go from there. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Gord, and thank you very much, Kathy, for the answers. Thanks also to Councillor Latimer for bringing this motion. Happy to support it tonight, and thanks for the time, Mayor Canna.
Councillor Kirkwood-White.
Thank you, Your Worship. Kathy, as I was listening to you talk about the increase in the number of calls, do you have any indication at all that the introduction of 311 instead of dialing 519-360-1998 has had an impact on the number of calls, and will that be part of the service review for this particular initiative here?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I can tell you unequivocally that the introduction of 311 has contributed to the increased volume of calls that we've received from customers, which is a great thing. That's one of the very reason why Council passed that motion and wanted 311 implemented, and it has been certainly helpful to know that 311 has been implemented. We have not been able to specifically track stats related to that, Councillor Kirkwood-White. These are, people don't necessarily call and say, I called you because I found out about 311, but we can tell you that the stats are significantly higher this year, and there is two basic things that changed in this past year, and one was 311 and one was COVID.
All right, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay, final comments from Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I think there is no doubt that this past year has proven to all of us that our service delivery can move forward differently and still afford continued safety and well-being and actual growth in our community. So I would ask that my fellow councillors please support this motion, and I too will be looking forward to the report from Ms. Hoffman and the EMT team.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
Waiting for one more voter, please. And please make sure that you hit submit. All votes are in. Motion passes.
Item 17A.
17A under Finance, Budget, Information Technology and Transformation, we have high-speed fiber update.
Okay, we're going to have a presentation by Gord Quinton, but prior to that, I would like to pass the mic over to Councillor McGrail, in that I really like to recognize that she spent the last 2 years representing Chatham-Kent on the SWIFT committee, and she was instrumental in making this happen. We're getting over $19 million to help rural Chatham-Kent get fiber. So I'd like to note that and thank her for all her commitment, because a lot of people will be tied in the internet because of a lot of the work she's done. So with that, Councilor McGrail, I'll pass it over to you for some comments, and then over to Gord for a presentation.
Much thank you, Mayor Caniff. I'm just going to be quick and give my little perspective of this board and of SWIFT and what we've done so far. And the first thing I'm going to say is I am very proud to be the representative on this board for Chatham-Kent, and the group that I work with on this board and the SWIFT members are a great bunch of people that have worked hard and put their minds together to come up with a good product. I also want to thank previous councils and administration for realizing, the need for rural internet and investing in this initiative first off. So without saying too much, because Gord has his own presentation, but I do want to say that I've been on this board for 2 years, but SWIFT and the group and the municipalities within SWIFT have been working on this project for quite a long time now. So this is a great result. And to come to council tonight to talk about this, of our initial investment of $762,400, we're getting $19.3 million worth of projects, That's awesome. That's a 25.2 times multiplier from our initial investment. Are you crossing off your things to see there, Gord? I'm sorry. But what this also equals, is over 4,500 premises passed and 227 kilometers of fiber laid, in 5 separate projects. But I do want to talk for a moment about this is the first step, right, of this of rural internet in this whole project, and that and it's a good step forward, but by no means did this project complete the rural internet for all task, and it's only the start. For those areas that were not awarded fiber in this particular project, hold tight for a moment, please. There are other projects in the works, and hopefully soon we can finalize and announce exactly where they will be. So there is some more announcements to come, and hopefully we take our second and third and fourth step, in completing this. And to my fellow councillors and municipal employees, we need to continue to move forward with new and innovative solutions, because as we increase our footprint of rural internet, we will have to become increasingly creative with our solutions. We need to keep moving forward and to provide for all of CK. So again, great first step with more to come. So thank you.
And prior to Mr. Quinton giving his presentation, Councilor McGrail and Councilor Harrigan, can I get you to put this on the floor, please?
I definitely will move this.
And I will second it.
Okay, over to you, Mr. Quinton. Gord, you're on mute.
That would help, wouldn't it? Thank you. It's Gord Quinton, Chief Financial Officer and General Manager of Technology and Information Technology and Transformation Services. So that's how the fiber falls under my area. Just verifying, can you see a map on your screen? Perfect. So first, thank you again, Councillor McGrail, for all your dedication and effort as a member of the SWIFT board. As detailed in the report, fiber is a critical utility for all residents in Canada, yet many are still without workable, affordable internet. And Chatham-Kent Council has been supporting fiber expansion in rural areas since 2013, when it joined the Southwestern Integrated Fiber Technology, or SWIFT, and we are finally seeing the fruits of that investment. So on the screen, what I'm showing is actually a link to an interactive map that you can find in my report to the SWIFT site. And I'm just going to blow it up for a bit because so you won't be able to see the entire municipality at once, but I'm going to start in the northern area and then come across and show you what's been done. The blue area, so for example, if I just start in Chatham, this is not part of any SWIFT grant application area. All the larger urban centers are excluded of that because it's really to help out the rural areas, because dense urban areas such as Chatham or Wallaceburg, there will be economic reasons for, first of all, they likely already have 5010 service through their cable providers, and if not, the fiber is being added up and down the streets of those areas through economic means. There's enough competitions by many of the firms. So then so I'll just give you a brief tour of what's been announced. You'll see blue lines, and I'm just highlighting one that came down from Wallaceburg down to Pancor. These are some of the trunk lines that are being installed by our local ISP, TechSavvy. And with Council's assistance, Council in September, you approved a report with some financial assistance to TechSavvy to put in these trunk lines. And that is what has enabled some of these announcements through SWIFT to come to reality. So the red lines are some of the many new lines that are basically the $19.3 million are being spent on. So communities such as Grand Point, Mitchell's Bay, the west of Wallaceburg, up to the Hampton County line, Tupperville, Dresden. Most of Bothwell was being already connected, but there's some expansion to the south of Bothwell. There's the lines from Chatham out to Thamesville. Moravian Town, Delaware on the Thames, has just been lit up by TechSavvy recently. There's work being done between there to Ridgetown and over to Highgate. The SWIFT award in red here is TechSavvy's lighting up of Highgate, Muirkirk, and Dewar areas. And then we have, this again is some of the loop trunk line by TechSavvy in blue. And this area in red, basically all in South Chatham-Kent, was actually awarded to Cogeco Systems to put in fiber in that area. When you go over to West Kent, Tilbury, a lot of that area in the town does have 5010 service already through cable services, but there is future projects being identified to upgrade that. And also, this is another trunk line that Tech Savvy was putting in from Tilbury down to Wheatley. And so some of the things that you see in blue are work that's being done over the next 6 months as well. So that, of course, as I move back to trying to display the most of Chatham-Kent as I can, of course, there's lots of areas that are missing in service, and you know, the individual concession roads and everything down that. But what having such a network all around the municipality does is now enables a lot of companies to expand their access to residents through point-to-point systems. Now that there's getting to be live fiber lines all around, makes it much easier for those point-to-point systems to work. And I can also tell you that we have, just want to emphasize that the mayor's office and staff are signing grant application forms pretty well weekly for many of the still to come grants that are in the works and on their way. The federal and provincial governments have, and especially with COVID-19 and learning from home and working from home, are piling in a lot of new money into these initiatives, and we do expect through either fiber to the home or through point-to-point systems that will be able to get at least 5010 and likely much better than that service to at least 98% of Chatham-Kent over the next few years. So just in closing, also included as attachment to the report was some information about SWIFT 2.0. And that is encouraging all levels of government to fund it, to complete the job that we've started here, and to get everyone the connectivity they need to participate in today's world. And that's my presentation. I'll take any questions from council.
Councillor Oche.
Through you, your worship, to Gord. I am having many questions from people down in the Wheatley area as far as fiber. You mentioned there is a line going in right now within the next 6 months. Is that fiber or is that cable? Or?
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. Thank you for the question. Yes, I'll try to expand a little bit on the screen. This line is part of the trunk line system that we're connecting from Tilbury down to Wheatley. And once that line's there, it really becomes commercially viable for the companies to expand the fiber to the home in Wheatley to every residence and business in Wheatley very quickly. So the SWIFT grant parameters do give the companies a little bit of time to put this in. It could take up till 2 years, but there is of course a very strong incentive for each company that's involved to get the work done as fast as they possibly can and get customers hooked up as fast as they can prior to other firms moving into the different territories. So at this point, we can't promise that fiber will be live in Wheatley by the end of the year, but I would certainly hope that it will be. I see Don's has some more to add.
Thank you, Worship and Gord. Councillor Oche, I just wanted to confirm that the work that we're doing in West Kent was really the direct result of council's investment. West Kent did not receive any money from SWIFT, so they're not bound by the same timelines that we have for some of the other projects. I think there's a recognition that people are desperate for high-speed fiber, and the companies are doing the best they can. But we don't have the same controls on that investment as we do on some of the other projects. So I want to manage expectations for people that are listening this evening. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. So if I may, the trunk line is supposed to be completed within 6 months through you, Your Worship. Sorry to Gord.
So there's not an exact timeline, but I would expect that it will be that all 5 of the trunk lines that we approved will be installed in 2021.
Okay, great. Thanks very much.
Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. Councillor Oche asked the questions that I had, and this map is really helpful in helping me know why my internet is so patchy all the time. Thanks so much, Gord. This is really exciting for all of CK.
Hey, anyone seen? Councillor Bondi, followed by Councillor Scotchy.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. Sorry, Gord, this question is maybe a little off topic, a little bit. But some questions that I've received in the city of Chatham, we're seeing these orange fences constructed effectively on everybody's front lawn in certain neighborhoods. Is this fiber installation? And if so, I assume it is, but never make any assumptions. My question would be, I obviously live in the city. I have very, sometimes, pretty good internet, but can somebody, and Gord, this is kind of a technical question, but my internet delivery right now seems really great. I can watch a live tennis game from the other side of the planet with very little glitching and interruption. So what is the what's the benefit of fiber versus high speed? Again, I'll be 52 in a couple of days. This stuff's a little out of my league, but I seem to have really good internet at the moment. So how much better will it be with fiber? And again, are those orange fences that are cropping up everywhere? Is that what I'm looking at?
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. So yes, that of course there's other utility work being done throughout the municipality, but particularly if you're talking in Chatham, yes, you've seen a lot of those little orange fences, and the reason they're doing most of, not all of it, but most of the installations in Chatham are being done underground, which are doing directional drilling or whatever they call where they push the lines through the ground, so they don't have to dig a trench all along. They can just every 50 meters or so put one of those holes in the ground. They're often working around sewer lines and everything else, so they have to be careful in some spots. That's sometimes the reasons for the holes, and that's the process that they do. We have a team of 4 staff in engineering that are working with those companies, doing the permitting and basically telling them in the road allowance exactly where they can place that line and where our infrastructure is, and so that they don't puncture a water line or something when that's going through. So that's exactly what you're seeing. Since you are in the city of Chatham, you've probably got pretty good internet anyway, whether it's through Bell, Cogeco, copper lines. So even if the fiber lines aren't on your road, you likely have close to 5010 service right now. 5010 means 50 megabytes per second for downloads and 10 megabytes per second of uploads. That's sort of the standard, although even that's getting on the low side for more advanced uses of internet, more data being used, that threshold is just going up and up and up, and getting online and learning and one of the particular issues with kids working from home during the COVID lockdowns is just the volume of people that are on a street on those copper lines. So fiber just extreme speed compared to copper lines, and just makes there to be no internet issues at all once you can get fiber. So that's why everybody wants fiber to the home, and that's the best way to get it. And often it's it's often even cheaper than the old lines when it's installed. The prices are pretty good as well. So thanks.
Thank you, Mary Kenneth. Gord, so when fiber lines are installed in my neighborhood or anybody's neighborhood, I'm a Cogeco person. That's just who I subscribe to for my internet service. Will I see an adjustment in price, presumably, higher, because of fiber lines, or is it just kind of like, they've improved the service and my contract would stay the same? Again, I don't know that you're going to know that you're not Bell Canada or Cogeco, but as a consumer, does this affect me, or is it just an upgrade that is going to be a naturally wonderfully accepted thing?
So keep in mind, most of this presentation discussion was about rural Chatham-Kent that basically has.
I know. I'm sorry.
Many places that have close to nothing. Some areas can't get a connection at all. But yes, if we're talking in Chatham, it is a far superior upgrade, and but cost wise, I think many people are finding that the competition with fiber, it may even cost you less than what you're paying today.
Okay, great. Sorry to go a little off track.
I wouldn't expect more.
Well, and again, I apologize for going a little off topic there, but thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Councillor Sakatchi.
Thank you, through your Mayor Caniff. Mine's more just a comment, and you can comment if you like, Gord. One question I received lots of when this kind of was first announced as regards to the timeline. I know that you can't be specific, to timeline in the different projects, but I just wanted to, I thought it was very important to publicly state that it doesn't have to all be operational before us to start seeing the benefits, that these different, areas and trunks, so to speak, can be, you use the words lit up at different times. And if I'm wrong, you can correct me, but, some of these areas will see benefits before others, and it doesn't have to all be complete before, the rural areas start to see the benefits of this wonderful project.
Yeah, and I'll just use I was going to pick Shrewsbury here as an example. You're exactly correct. They'll be bringing the line down, then they'll probably light up this line up, and then they'll start going up and down every street. And once they get a street complete, in this case it would be Cogeco. They're probably making it available. So they probably go, like street by street in the village, or kilometer intersections to intersections in the rural areas down down a road, because they do have to put in junction boxes at intersections and things like that. So they'll light up pretty quickly as they come along. It really doesn't take them that much time after that line gets pushed through. Now some of the rural area will be on Hydro One poles as well. It's more in the residential neighborhoods that it gets to be the underground, and so it actually becomes fairly quick for them to string around along a rural road, non-urban center. They just string along the hydro poles, and it comes along pretty quickly.
That is it for me. Thank you, Mayor Caniff, and thank you, Mr. Quinton.
Okay, anyone opposed to receiving the report? Hearing none, motion passes. Item 17B.
Municipal Modernization Program Grant Application.
Councillor Harrigan and Councillor Kirkwood White, can I get you to put this on the floor, please?
I'm happy to second if Melissa wants to move it.
Oh, yes. Sorry, so moved.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Harrigan followed by Councillor Kirkwood White.
Mayor Kenneth, I don't believe I had any questions. Oh, the questions that I had about this were actually more related to Councillor Latimer's motion, so I don't have any questions on this report. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kirkwood White followed by Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to either Gord or Don Shropshire. On page 3 of Gord's report, he talks about the fact that the external consultant will undertake a detailed review of all the programs and services the municipality provides, how it provides them, what is working well, and changes that council may wish to consider, including enhancements and service reductions. About 18 to 24 months ago, several council members, began discussions with our CAO about the coordination of communication issues within the municipality. And I wondered whether either Gord or Don would like to comment. And I know that COVID has created a delay in the discussions that we began, but do you have any further updates on the work that we initiated that 18 to 24 months ago?
Thank you, Your Worship. It's Don Schrupp, the Chief Administrative Officer speaking. Councillor Kirkwood White, you're quite right. We did initiate a study. There was a delay of over 10 months with the COVID situation. I had talked to Gord and Steve Brown. Steve Brown is not only our Director of Budget, but also Performance Management. We reconnected in late January and reinitiated the communication review. So that has been restarted and the work is underway again, but you're quite right. There was a unfortunate delay as a result of COVID, but we're back on track now. And Gord, if you have some updates on the timetable, maybe that could be shared with council as well.
No, thank you, Don. Just that it's ongoing, and I don't want to give a total guess of where it's going to be because I know they're still working through issues. But I would expect a spring, a May-June type return to council with a report.
So, given the fact that communication wasn't listed as part of the exclusions from the third-party review, will we be continuing to do that ourselves as opposed to allowing the third party to be part of that process? Assuming we get money,
Yeah, so thank you for the question. I know there is a list of items that we're saying for various reasons to perhaps not have in scope. However, the third party consultant that will be hired to do this review we'll be taking an overall look at the entire municipality with everything, all our services. There's just certain areas that we've asked them not to do a deep dive into because of various concerns that are detailed in the report. So, as far as overall structure, communication still would be included in that review. But what's going on is a deep dive with our internal service review group that's much more detailed and getting into some concrete changes that can happen right away.
Appreciate the response. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Gord.
Councillor Latimer.
All my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I guess my question maybe is to Judy. I had forwarded a motion that I had pulled and deferred. I didn't know that I would be available for tonight for the entire evening, but here I am. So my question, Judy, you've read the motion, obviously, is it appropriate now? I don't expect that you're maybe going to be able to answer this, but I've been working on it for a couple of weeks, so it's kind of baked into this report that we're having in front of us. And I think perhaps the motion is appropriate. Now there's this funding thing that, my motion would be potentially funded at 65% or so. So, Judy, do you have any comment on that motion? Because if it is appropriate, I would like to put it forward this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Bondy, you're here, and if you want to put it forward during the notices of motion period, you're welcome to do that, and then it would come back to council for the vote next week, and then we'd be able to analyze it within that time, and then be able to, speak to it at that point. But you're welcome to present it tonight under the notices of motion.
Right. Thank you. I don't want it to be in conflict of what I'm, reading this evening, what we've, been discussing. Would it be in conflict, or would it be better off to be after we apply for this grant money? I know I'm asking kind of for advice here, but I really am asking for advice. And of course, you're the only one that's probably privy to the motion, right? So
I think at this point, I think at this point, if we proceed with the motion that's on the floor, and then, you present your notice of motion tonight, and we can analyze it and get back to you tomorrow with regard to, recall what it was. I don't have it right in front of me right now, but there's portions of it that reflect to this motion, but it's not completely the same. So we'd have to look at that and analyze it, and we can definitely speak more about that on the floor next week.
Okay, great. I'll put it forward then. Thank you very much, Mayor Kenneth and Judy.
With that as well, Gord or Don, did you need to say anything else? I wanted to make a couple comments. No? Yeah, just
good. Thank you, Mayor.
I would expect that even if we don't get funding for this, that we proceed on. That I think it's very important that we look at it. A lot of other communities, I'll use Sudbury as an example. They did a review a couple of years ago, very similar to our community, very spread out. Read through the report, and there's over 100 recommendations in there. And a lot of what they do is they take and compare to other municipalities, various departments, to see your efficiency, how efficient you are. So I think it's very important that we do that study regardless of funding. I'd like to see we get funding, so we're only paying a certain percentage of it. But I think it's important that as we move forward, and Gord, I think you have a couple of things to add on that, but I would really like to see us move ahead with this. I know that we can't move ahead and approve it now because that will jeopardize some potential grant money, but I think that when Gord comes back to the report, we should be prepared to move ahead regardless. Gord, you had something to add?
Yeah, so just related to what you just said there, Mr. Mayor. As you know, we're of course we're trying to get head for this grant, hoping to have the RFP out late this week. So that while we're waiting for the grant to be approved, we'll be getting the bids in, so that early April, hopefully we have decisions from the provincial government on whether we receive the grant, and we'll also have the RFPs in our hand. At that time, since the amount of the consultant services is over $100,000, it needs to come back for a council approval anyway. So my plan is to come back to council, hopefully with good news that the province has agreed to fund 65%. And but one option of council is if the province doesn't fund it, is to fund the full 100% from strategic reserves. So I could bring that RFP back either way with the results, how much the actual cost will be, and if we don't receive funding, we can have a different motion to fund it from strategic reserves.
Thanks, Gord. I think this is going to be money well spent. Gord, what is the timing that if we were to hire in April, how long do you believe that the report would take, and when would we see it?
So the requirements of the report is for an interim report to come back to council no later than September 2021. with a final report no later than November 2021. So it's about being that we're not going to actually approve it until May or late April, that the consultant won't be starting to May. It's about a 5 to 6 month report to build.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes. Moving on to community development, 18A, Chatham-Kent Community Improvement Plan Property Tax Increment Equivalent Grant Application, Skyline Real Estate Holdings, Inc., 53 and 57 Riverview Drive, Community of Chatham City.
Councillor B. McGregor and Councillor C. McGregor, can I get you to put this on the floor, please?
So moved.
Thank you, whoever unmuted me. I'm happy to second.
Okay, Councillor Bondi, I see you have a question.
Thank you, Mary Caniff. Yep, 2 quick questions. Skyline owns a number of properties in the municipality, and I'm assuming that this tax break or incentive applies only to the new development, not to their other properties in the municipality. And secondly, I guess this one would go to Gord. Is there any thought of any initiative to provide some sort of relief to commercial owners other than Skyline in the municipality that have suffered through rent deferrals or rent mispayment or non-payments because of COVID? Because we seem to be doing a favor to Skyline, which is great. It's a good thing. Like, everybody's happy about this, but is there any discussion on relief for current commercial owners within the municipality that have suffered through some sort of dilemma through COVID?
Thank you, Your Worship. Maybe I'll take the first one, Gord. Thank you. It's Bruce McAllister, General Manager, Community Development. So it's correct. This just applies to the new development at the address on Riverview Drive and not existing developments that Skyline has.
So thank you, Mayor Canna, for the other parts of your question. So first of all, in our 2021 budget, we approved the budget that, with including the education tax reductions from the province, has every I would say about 99% of our commercial and industrial properties in Chatham-Kent will be seeing a overall tax reduction of over 6%. So it's very important. It's the first time they've seen a reduction of that magnitude in years, and it's just a perfect timing as a response to COVID-19. But additionally, and economic development is aware of this and can help out any business if they're not. But there are a multitude of programs out there to help small businesses and every business that's been affected by COVID-19 through both the provincial and federal government programs. And that's including during the lockdown, the province had a full property tax and utility bill rebate to affected businesses that were totally locked down as a result of the lockdown measures. So I just want to encourage everybody to make sure that they're applying to the grants that they're eligible for, and ACDEV and on their CK Invest page has lots of details and are happy to assist any business that needs help navigating the grants that are out there.
And thank you through Mayor Caniff. Gord, I guess my question was more, excuse me, directed at I understand what you're saying, and I know there are a lot of great programs out there for small businesses, as I was one once, not anymore, due to COVID. But I guess my question is really not the programs that are available to the small businesses to help them with rent, but it's more to the landlords who've experienced vacancy as the businesses are gone. So they're not applying for anything because they're just gone. And as a municipality, and I understand there's a very fine creaky line with bonusing, you know, but is there anything in the conversation within the municipality to provide some relief to somebody like Mr. Deneuer, who we heard from earlier today? And he's not the only one. I've heard from a lot of different guys just because of my old line of work. Landlords that, you know, aren't getting rent because the business no longer exists. So that business obviously can't apply for programs from the feds or from the province, but that leaves the landlord kind of hanging because, like, no tenant means no rent, a direct result of COVID. And I don't know if we can do anything or not, because the bonusing thing obviously, you know, prevents a lot of what we can do, but I'm just curious if there's anything that the municipality, you know, through the ECDEV department can do. Thanks.
Don, can you answer that?
I think Gord is going to take that piece, your worship. I do have one other piece to add.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Gord.
Yeah. So I think the deputation was referring to the vacancy rebate program, which is a program that we had for several years, and that council ended in 2017, and it was phased out over 2018 and 2019. The vacancy rebate program used to be a tool to provide up to a 30% rebate to commercial owners if they didn't have a tenant. And that's been phased out, not just in Chatham-Kent, but throughout the province. London, Windsor, Sarnia, everyone around us has also phased that out. And it was actually as a request, a strong request of the local BIAs, who found that some landlords perhaps weren't that interested in renovating a building to assist a new tenant, and it was actually providing that rebate was a disincentive to improve the properties and make them marketable and investable. So it was actually the business community that was in full support of this, doing away with the vacancy rebate program, and it's being eliminated across the province.
Yes, and through you, Mayor Kenneth, I do remember that discussion. I was just wondering if, not post-COVID, because we're not quite post-COVID yet, but because of COVID, is there any discussion on some sort of relief, you know, particularly because of COVID and the vacancy rate in commercial properties due to COVID, not the conversation that we had a number of years ago, because I do recall that one, but I don't think there is. So, but thanks, I appreciate it.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, just to add further to Gord's point, so through the vacancy rebate program, council did allocate the funds coming back into our community improvement plan to encourage to build a pot for the various programs that were in the plan. So tonight's example is one for residential, but there's been a number that have come to council and other programs that administration approves, like facade grants for example, that you know, many commercial business owners have been applying for, that is funded through the vacancy rebate surplus, partially anyway. Mm-hmm.
Your worship, if I could add two additional points to address the deputation this evening. I think the first piece is the target that we have right now for our community improvement program with the 100% tax relief. That was very targeted to try and address the needs that we'd heard from the business community. We had heard from many employers that one of their major pinch points right now was not enough of a workforce, and they were saying they needed a place for people to come to Chatham-Kent and to live, but to be able to be hired and to build their business. So that target that we have right now is for trying to to increase dramatically the number of residential properties we have, and we have had some success in doing that. I think the other comment that Mr. Deneur had made was, to try and make sure that we're balancing, helping support long-term investors with new investors as well. In the case of Skyline, I believe they've been in our community for decades, and they've continued to invest, and we're pleased about that. But I think Mr. Deneur's point is well taken, as there have not been a lot of incentive for landlords, and I think that's something that administration could be taking back. The provincial government and the federal government, but the province in particular, has been very receptive to concerns that we've raised regarding business owners. And although the municipality may not have the means to provide some of those financial offsets, we certainly make the commitment to go back and talk to the provincial government to see if there's any way that we can get additional relief. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes.
Item 19A.
Encroachment agreement, 22 William Street South, Chatham.
Councillor Crew and Councillor Finn, can I get you put on the floor, please?
I'd be happy to put that on the floor.
As Councillor B. McGregor, can I get you to second it, please?
Happy to second.
Seeing no questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes. 19B, encroachment agreement, 213 King Street West, Chatham.
Councillor Kirkwood White and Councillor Solomon, can I get you to put this on the floor, please?
So moved.
Second.
Councillor Kirkwood White, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to express my congratulations to Terry Johnson and Chandra Clark on their new venture, the Board Game Cafe and Bookstore that will be opening on King Street. And to also make mention of the fact that today they launched a new book that they co-authored entitled The Entrepreneurial Parent. Run your business, raise your family, keep your sanity. So congratulations to Terry and Chandra. Looking forward to the grand opening of Turns and Tales.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes. Moving on to 19D, terms of reference, infrastructure of bridges, culverts, and roads innovation committee.
Councillor Latimer and Councillor C. McGregor, can I get you to put this on the floor, please?
So moved.
Happy to second.
Okay, Councillor Latimer, the floor is yours, followed by Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you, through the mayor. I had a question sent to me by a member of the public. Number 4, meetings are open to the public and notice needs to be given within 48 hours as to where and when meetings will be held and topics to be discussed. We can see where the meetings are to be held at 5 p.m. on the first Tuesday of the month, but where is this notice posted?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope my video is working now. So the posting is done in a couple different locations on our website. The first is the community calendar, and the second is the committees of council. We've gone through that, and it actually is maybe not the easiest to find, and we are having a website revision coming up shortly. We're trying to find a means to make that more evident to the public, but it is regularly posted on our website. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I did find it in the committees of council, but I didn't find it on the community calendar, so I'll look for that. Thank you.
Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you, and through the mayor, I just wanted to point out that that this report is coming back to council based on a request earlier that came to council, I think through Councillor Pinsino, about the makeup of the infrastructure committee. And I just want to assure everybody, I think having it motioned and moved back to the infrastructure committee was a good idea. We had lots of time to talk about different needs, and I think Councillor Pinsino's motion was in regards to the agricultural positions, but this has also allowed us to open up the area that for our specialty people that are sitting on there. Before it was basically engineers, but I think we're finding with the committee that there are a lot of other professionals out there that would be of great advantage to us. So I just wanted to point that out, and that we had a really good discussion on this, and that I hope this is supported. So,
Councillor Pinsino.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I've got no problem with this. I think it's good we got 4 representatives from the agricultural community. I guess my question is it still done the same way where council appoints the members to this committee, or how does that exactly work?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's Thomas Kelly again. If council approved this report tonight, we will go out and advertise for additional members of the committee. I will then summarize those for council and bring them back into closed for approval, and then to open for final decision.
Okay, so we will get the final say in closed session. And I guess part 2 of that question, you're going to involve the KFA and the OFA, correct?
Already are.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we do have 1 member of the KFA on the committee now. The way the terms are written, we're asking for 4 agricultural representatives. So we're not specifying the organization. What we are specifying is that they have a background in agriculture for that particular appointment.
Okay, I get that, but I don't want to see those numbers get skewed in the that was part of the problem I thought before. I just like to see the people that really are involved with this and have been, the grassroots of the innovation here. I think we really need to keep them involved.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So all of the meetings are open to all members and to all members of the public as well. So if a particular KFA member would like to attend any meeting, they're certainly welcome to do so. And it's at the discretion of the chair. It's a little less formal. If they have any questions, they're also welcome to raise those to the chair. And that often happens. They're often very active in the participation of these meetings. So that is really happening now. Thank you.
Okay, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that some of the ones on the agriculture community committees, maybe not are engineers or lawyers, but are very intelligent when it comes to infrastructure. And I want to make sure that they are considered. Thank you.
They will be. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. And motion passes. We're now going on to 19E, revised bridge divestment criteria.
Councillor Harrigan, did you have something you wanted, a revision that you wanted to make?
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. Not a revision, but an addition. So I will move item 1 as it's written, and also add item 2, that deputations continue to be permitted to council on the subject of all future bridge rehabilitation, replacement, and capital projects.
Okay, Councillor C. McGregor, can I get you to second that?
Certainly.
All right, Councillor Harrigan, the floor is yours, followed by Councillor C. McGregor.
Great, thank you. Certainly the background is given on this report, and I think that Mr. Kelly did an excellent job summarizing the the events that have taken place since we had this conversation last back in 2019, if you can believe it was that long ago. What I have done in having some conversations with Mr. Kelly, and certainly I'm open to other councillors' opinions, is I felt that the recommendations to follow some already established processes made a lot of sense in terms of giving staff clear direction on how they should go about engaging with the stakeholders in larger community when it comes to potential bridge divestment. But there was a line in the report that noted that following this, there would not be any opportunity for deputations on council. And for me personally, I felt uncomfortable with that and think that as a council, if engagement is something that we prioritize, then censoring, so to speak, deputations just because there's been opportunities to engage elsewhere is likely not the best course of action. Because we do know that there are a number of engagements that take place outside of council on a number of other issues across the municipality, but that doesn't preclude those deputations on the night of council. So I did want to add that in. And I also, just while I have the floor, wanted to note that as this is ongoing, the CK 2035 committee has really had a lot of conversations around community engagement, and council will be receiving something formally in the near future around some recommendations and opportunities to continue to look at community engagement and the importance of making sure that there is the constant opportunity for community voice. So those are just all my comments, Mayor Caniff. I don't have any questions about this report. Thank you.
Councillor C. McGregor, followed by Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, through the mayor. And basically really what I wanted to point out, because this report was brought to us at council at one point and then sent back for further consultation. And we had again at our committee meeting, we had a really good discussion, and hence came number 6 with reference to public consultation. Though I do fully understand where Councillor Harrigan is coming from, but we all at the table felt it was very important that if all 1 through 5 pass, that it needs that extra area of public consultation for anyone or any of the landowners that are actually directly adjacent or affected by that property. So I thank Chris and Thomas and others on the team that helped us work through to get that language put into this criteria, and I think as a going forward basis that this is a good way to go with this criteria that's set out in the matrix.
Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, through the mayor. I actually had 2 questions. One was on number 4, traffic impacts. How are you accounting for or accommodating for farm equipment traveling at significant less speeds than posted?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to pass this on to my colleague, Chris Tiber.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. This is Chris Tiber, Director of Engineering. So the matrix did not account for agricultural vehicles traveling at less the posted speed limit. The number 4, it is based on the posted speed limits, that detour route, or essentially that route around the bridge should the bridge be removed. So it's how it was derived was basically based on like a typical concession block out in the rural area. It's the time that it takes to get from one point on one side of the bridge to the other side of the bridge should that bridge not be there. And just running some quick stats, we did a high level analysis of the entire municipality, factoring in criteria 1, 2, and 3, which is only looking at gravel roads and for structures with an AADT of less than 400 out in the rural area. We have approximately 500 structures that would be evaluated through this criteria. and of the 890 that we have in our inventory. And these are for bridges, of course, over 3 meters in span. And applying that criteria of 10 minutes for that detour route around the bridge, based on the posted speed limits, of course, it results in approximately 150 structures. And if we then go one step further and take a look at the agricultural vehicle, like slow moving farm equipment, and essentially dropping that speed limit down to 40 or 50 kilometers per hour approximately, that significantly reduces that number down to almost about 15 structures. So we go from approximately 150 structures that would be potentially eligible candidates through this criteria, and of course triggered to go to that next stage of public consultation, now down to 15. So really what we're trying to recognize here is that if you do apply that criteria of slower moving vehicles, it essentially renders this process not feasible.
Thank you for that clarification, Chris. I appreciate that, because I don't know that someone would understand that looking at that matrix, just reading it. The second question I have is that I actually wanted you to describe what anticipated public consultation would look like. And while that would include conducting meetings, how would the information rendered from those meetings be communicated to council? And I think that might take up part of that deputation, the second part of the amended motion here.
Thank you, Mayor Cam. So the public consultation piece, if a structure passes all of the 5 criteria, number 6, which is what the committee recommended that we include in the matrix, is that we would first, within about a 2 to 3 week period, we would do individual mailouts and individual notices to all of the affected landowners that are in a certain proximity or adjacent to the structure in question. And we would conduct one-on-one meetings with them and have that detailed conversation with them about why this structure was identified and what our plans are going forward, whether it be including some turnaround bulbs to accommodate them, lengthening some driveways, and exploring options ultimately with them if there's anything that can be done to work to their needs, essentially. Following those meetings, so after about 2 to 3 weeks, we're then going to utilize our Let's Talk Chatham-Kent page for public consultation. And again, following the municipal Class EA process, we're going to post the recommendation for divestment up on the website for a period of 30 days. And that's going to allow all members of the public to review the information, to see what the detour route or that route around the structure looks like, to see what the impacts are. We're going to provide as many visuals and information as we can on Let's Talk Chatham-Kent, and allow that opportunity for the public to comment through either calling 311, the municipal center, mailing in, all the different avenues that we have for public consultation. Following that 30-day period, administration will be then summarizing everything received, not only from the 30-day period, but also from those one-on-one meetings, and presenting all that back to council with our ultimate recommendation for bridge divestment. And the recommendation, of course, will be to divest, but what could happen as a result of these one-on-one meetings and what could happen as a result of the 30-day period is there could be some unique opportunities or options that come forward that might change our recommendation as well. So we're going to present our final recommendation, whatever that may be, to council in a complete package with a summary of all of the comments received from the public.
And if I could add to that, one of the things that the challenges we have is that with the public consultation, often you're only getting a small segment of the population. In the report, we identify that 80% of all the investment on bridges is actually supported by the entire tax base. So what we're trying to achieve is that voice of the silent majority. It's out there, and quite often during these public consultations, many of them are concerned to raise their voice, to speak up. So this process of 30 days allows anyone to go on the website. We ask for their name, but when that report comes to council, we actually remove that name. And that was, again, a best practice that's been identified by other municipalities and different governments. And the reason is that then there's no concern of how this could affect your neighbor. Quite often we don't have full agreement when we're going forward with this, and many people are reluctant to really speak up. And that's one of the reasons as well that we asked that there would not be deputations allowed. That was the recommendation of the committee. that by allowing that to take place, we essentially have a hole in our process. So now that people really don't have to attend the Public Information Center, they don't have to give their input until the 30 days, they can simply wait until it comes to council and voice their opinion there. So it really compromises the report and the summary that we will give to council. So therefore, for example, if someone is going to just wait for the deputation, we will not have that input in our report. So our entire goal being to give council a very comprehensive report saying we talked to everybody, this is the input, that really creates a hole in that process, item number 2, that now that there's no incentive really to attend the 30-day session, that folks can just come and give their deputation. So that was just some background on why the committee landed at that. We're just trying to assume a very level playing field for all. And we mentioned in the report the equality, that every opinion matters and there's not one over the other. And this way you have a cutoff of that public engagement session that's very common amongst the province, amongst the feds as well, and other municipalities, that you put an end to that. And our thought was as well is when this report came to council, if there was still concern that we didn't conduct enough public engagement, there wasn't enough time, the council would then direct us to go back with the report and go back out for more public consultation. So that's just an explanation of some of the logic and why that recommendation was made in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that explanation, and actually it sways my opinion about the deputations being, I think the way it's worded, I don't know that we don't want to permit further deputations being provided, either be through the one-on-one or Let's Talk Chatham-Kent. Maybe the definition of deputation, that meaning you talk the night of the meeting, might be what the problem is there. And I agree with you. There's lots of opportunity to provide, especially, I think, opinions of opposition. And maybe we could, I don't know if there's something we can build in where you're finding that despite the fact that your recommendation, it meets all the criteria and you're at the public engagement, you're still finding that overwhelmingly, or even not even overwhelmingly, you maybe have 1 to 3 persons or individual groups who are in definite opposition to this, that it go back, that you look at how you're going to mitigate this before you bring it forward. And I don't know, maybe I'm throwing I'm throwing a curveball in here, but I see your point very clearly, but I also see that probably number 2 is directed to address that concern, specifically where you anticipate there's going to be opposition, and how are we going to manage, or how are we going to enable that those voices are heard?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, we've done a lot of this public consultation for many, many years on all of these structures. And so have our colleagues throughout Ontario. We just recently attended the OGRA, and this was a point of discussion as well. And I think you may have been part of that, Councillor Latimer, that, we'll have public consultations and no one will show up. And then if it's a contentious issue, though, we'll have lots show up. But the ultimate goal, I think, of council is to get the voice of the entire community. And unfortunately, what we're trying to create here is a safe haven that anybody can give their opinion, and to do so professionally, and we give council a complete package. And as it turns out, a lot of the public consultation we do, all the feedback you get is to just those who are most impacted. And maybe that's what you're looking for. I know a lot of time has been spent by our CIO and also Councillor Harrigan on the next generation of public consultation. So we hope this is in line. We can tell you that in some respects, we're trying to standardize our process here and use this 30-day window along with a complete report coming to council as the standard, at least for infrastructure and engineering services. We're always open to continuous improvement, though, if there's that opportunity exists. Thank you.
Judy, do you want to make a comment on that?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just wanted to let council know, as part of the procedural bylaw, there is a section within the deputation section of the procedural bylaw that states that a deputation may be refused by the clerk in consultation with the CAO, where there has been at least one public meeting at which the public was provided the opportunity to make a formal presentation on that matter. So the clause is written lightly where it says may and isn't shall, but the purpose of that clause coming forward is previous council meetings we had before where it has been a larger contentious item, and we've had multiple 40 or 50 deputations on an item. And that just really took the whole council meeting to get through the deputations, and then no discussion or decision of council is made within that council meeting. So there is the option that at that time we would decided to go out to a public meeting where all of the comments can be heard, and then that way, when it comes to council, we have time to make those decisions. Understanding also we could have a separate council meeting on just one large item where we hear the deputations and then have just that report on the agenda. So there are ways around it. Of course, it's council's decision. I just wanted to bring the attention of that's why those clauses are within the procedural bylaw. It's totally council's decision on how they want to proceed with this process.
Okay, we have a number of hands up. I'll start with Councillor Sakachi, followed by Councillor Kirkwood-White.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. I appreciate the comments actually by my colleagues as well as that Judy just made. A little bit trying to think about this one here, number 2, because I know that there was a lot of discussion that went on in the infrastructure committee in regards to one thing that we were, the members of the agriculture community, members of council that were very adamant about was the actual public outreach and, administration really doing a really good job to go out to all those members that the potential project would affect. From a council perspective, I don't think that the intention, when we were discussing, is to silence anybody. The intention was to really get, collect the data as a whole and kind of circulate through those comments and kind of make a good decision. One of the real challenging parts for, I think for all of us is that, as the clerk mentioned, is when it is a very contentious issue, sometimes, it's beneficial to go through all the comments beforehand and initialize your thought process. So I really am on the fence on number 2, because I think, these decisions here are already extremely challenging when you're coming to divestments. And I think it's important that we capture all the comments in the community and that, they're all valuable regardless of the situation. So I do wish I had a little bit more time to think about number 2 than just on the fly. Because like I said, I know that Councillor McGregor and McGrail and Councillor Oche, as well as the whole team on the infrastructure committee, did put a lot of conversation into this piece and into this matrix. And I just wanted to touch base one more time with Mr. Kelly. Sorry, Mr. Kelly, the normal process in other municipalities, in other communities, is it include number 2 as well, or do you see most of them? I know you did somewhat answer it, but would you say most of the time when we're talking about situations like this, you just utilize a 30-day, collection of data and then present that to council as a whole?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it is the latter. Again, the standardized process within the province and other municipalities is collect all of this data and then come forward with your comprehensive report. It would just be our recommendation, rather than allowing deputations, if when we brought the report back to council, if there was still concern that we didn't do enough public consultation, we would go out with that report to the entire community and we'll capture more. That way it's a very fair process to everyone, and it doesn't just focus on a certain segment. And that's what's deemed the best practice anyway, that we're aware of within the province. Thank you.
Okay, so last quick comment then. So essentially then if, because these bridge divestments, obviously really do impact our rural community, and especially, members of the agricultural, aspects. So if they were to come to council and say, you know what, we don't feel that we were, engaged properly enough on this item, this would be something that we could defer or move back to allow for more capturing of data. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. That would be our recommendation. Rather than allowing the deputations on the night of the report, the feedback would be, as often happens, send the report back to administration for more public consultation. But the fairness of all of that is that everyone across the community now sees all of the report, all of the recommendations, and have an opportunity to make comment on it as well. Again, just not those who are showing up for deputations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. While my colleagues continue to talk, I am going to, ponder that number two. It's something that, I would like to have a little more time to think on. And the last, just more of a comment, when we're doing these reports, I think it's really beneficial. The one thing I have heard from the community is a lot of the members of the community that it doesn't affect don't really see in the report what kind of benefits it has as a whole to the community if the divestments, take place. So, I mean, for me to support a divestment, it really has to be something that is beneficial to the community, because that it is going to be hindering, somebody. And for that, it has to be, there has to be positive impact somewhere, or else it just doesn't really make sense to myself. So, in those reports, I think it's very important just to capture, the benefits that would, transpire if there is divestments, and to ensure that as a whole we're trying to mitigate and reduce the impacts to the people, because a lot of these these residents have farms on the other side of the bridges, and we need to know as a as a council that we're doing whatever we can, in administrations doing whatever they can to minimize the impacts on them, because it is really their livelihood. And like I said, look forward to hearing my colleagues' comments as well. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Based on the discussion, I'm going to suggest that we split it in two and we vote on 1 and 2 separately. So I've got still a number of people, Councillor Kirkwood White, followed by Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. You just jumped the gun on my recommendation. I was going to ask that we split the vote. Thank you.
Okay, we're being psychic on this end.
Okay.
Councillor Hall, followed by Councillor OJ.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick comment. Happy to support, recommendation number 1 in the report with the criteria matrix. And I'll be, now that we're splitting up, I'll be happy to support the motion put forward by Councillor Harrigan as well. I think that was a good catch by her. I didn't focus in on that part of this when reading the report. So I think that was a good catch. And I think this report and a lot of this process is about public engagement, and obviously our council priorities. Again, it's all about community engagement. I know it's been talked about by Thomas. I think he made a good statement today. The ultimate goal is to get the voice of the community. And I think when talking about public engagement, by taking away the deputation process with this, that's taking away some of those opportunities for public engagement. And in order to properly get the voices heard, I think that's an opportunity that the public expects and should have the opportunity to do, is to do a deputation when these reports come up. I think the public consultation processes, whether it's a separate public meeting that's mentioned in the report, I think those are good as well. But I think it should be followed up, and people should be able to have a deputation as well. So those are my comments, Mayor Canna. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor Thompson. I thought his hand went down, so I thought he didn't have a question, but I'll go to Councillor Thompson and Councillor OJ.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I was muted on organizer end. The only comment I had was
that I'm going to support number 2, because I think we hear a lot of complaints. Sometimes the government moves slowly, or that sometimes meetings can be cumbersome. But I think it's important that if we're going to err, we err on the side of allowing conversation and allowing those deputations to continue, even if it does come down to the idea that we need to have a special meeting. I can appreciate the concerns that somebody might short circuit the process by skipping an open house and going straight to a deputation. But I mean, if that's the case, then that's the case. So I'm going to support both 1 and 2. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Oche, followed by the last comment by Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I must say, being the chair of this infrastructure and innovation committee, I don't remember the deputations not to continue, or I definitely wouldn't have voted the way I did. I was right on the fence. We had to vote on this twice. The first time I voted against. The second time, with the speaking to the public, I decided that yeah, I would go with that, but I did not know we were not going to have deputations later on, and I must have read right over that when I okayed these. So I don't think that's fair at all. So just like Councillor Thompson and Councillor Hall, I think people should be heard, whether it's in the 30 days or after at a deputation. So I'll be voting for 1 and 2. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Harrigan, the final comments.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I think as councillors and as staff, we all know that any conversation we have around divestment of infrastructure, today we're looking at bridge criteria, but certainly with other service reviews on the floor, we could be looking at other infrastructure buildings or service centers as an example. And I really want to share that I appreciate the matrix that was used and the heightened awareness around public consultation. But that being said, I think it is really important for us to continue to offer those deputations. You know, I know that some of my colleagues mentioned that they feel like number 2 was kind of brought forward with not too much mention or notice, but it wasn't overly highlighted in the report, I felt. So I wanted that to be made really clear to council in terms of the, you know, that line on paragraph 2 on page 2 or 3 of the report. And make sure that we're all aware of what that could mean. Because just because something is going to be contentious doesn't mean we shouldn't, as others have said, offer every possible opportunity for those deputations to council. And I think, you know, when it comes to the engagement, the letters to homeowners, check, the Let's Talk CK, check, the community meetings, check, and then finally those deputations to council is that final check. Which for me as a counselor helps me to be really reassured that we've done everything we can to engage our constituents. And, you know, certainly we know when there's going to be a lot of deputations on a topic. We've seen a number of them in the last year, but I think that they make our conversations more wholesome, and it continues to put the onus on ourselves as counselors to be really prepared for our meetings and to read those reports ahead of time. And really formulate our opinions and decisions and questions based on those reports, and then potentially modify them or ask different questions based on the deputations that we heard. And I think that's a really healthy process. So I hope that my colleagues will support number 2 as well. And really looking forward, Thomas, to you and your team and seeing how this matrix plays out with future conversations.
Okay, with that, we'll put it to vote. We'll vote on number 1 first.
All votes are in. Motion passes.
Okay, we'll vote on item 2.
All votes are in. Motion passes.
Okay, we'll move to notices of motion. Councillor Kirkwood White.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we'll see where this one goes. I, Councillor Karen Kirkwood-White, hereby provide notice that I will bring forward the following motion at the 2021 March 22nd council meeting for discussion and voting. Whereas council's approved 2018-2022 term of office priorities identify growth as a priority and to rationalize current inventory of bridges, roads, parks, and buildings in support of new infrastructure investment. And whereas council's approved growth and recovery strategy next steps report 2020 October 05 identified a shortfall in the asset management plan of 0.4% per year, that's 1.9 million to date, and included the following comments from council members that, quote, nothing should be off limits to review, quote, there are no sacred cows, and quote, bring back council investment decisions where the financial commitment has not been made. And whereas the municipality has about 54% of the funding required to maintain its existing infrastructure, and whereas council approved $2 million in intersection improvements at Merlin Road and Queens Line in the 2020 capital budget, and whereas council declined a 2.75 million rationalization cost savings opportunity at the council meeting on 2019 September 09 related to the McDougall Line Bridge, which had been on the divestment list since 2013, and whereas the McDougall Line Bridge consulting costs to date are $50,000 in preparation for a forthcoming construction tender in the spring of 2021. And whereas the McDougall Line Bridge estimated construction costs of $2.7 million have not been committed to date, and whereas the cost to remove the McDougall Line Bridge and create a turnaround on McDougall Line is estimated to be $500,000 for a net infrastructure investment savings of $2.2 million. And whereas all safety concerns raised during the 2019 September 09 council meeting deputations for the McDougall Line Bridge will be addressed independent of the bridge investment divestment decision as follows. 1, the intersection alignment at McDougall Line and Queens Line will be reconstructed by the end of 2021 to allow for improved turning movements and sight lines for all forms of transportation. And 2, traffic control improvements at the intersection of Queens Line and Merlin Road will be completed by the end of 2022 to improve safety for all forms of transportation. And 3, the detour route associated with any proposed works or emergencies on Queens Line will remain unchanged by way of adjacent hard surfaced roads, that's Coots Line or Middle Line. And whereas despite decisions on divestment of bridges and culverts or to reduce levels of service can be difficult, concerted efforts should be made to identify other municipal assets that should be earmarked for divestment within this term of council. Be it therefore resolved that council reconsider the original direction provided to rehabilitate the McDougall Line Bridge and move to divest this municipal asset. And further, bear with me, that administration follow the process approved in item 19E tonight, and as this is a revised bridge criteria and the McDougall Line Bridge construction has not started or been sourced, a report be brought back to council to outline how the new criteria impacts council's previous decision. And that's it.
We have 3 other notice of motion. I'll go to Councillor Sakachi, then to Councillor Bondi, and then back to Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. Whereas the municipality of Chatham-Kent has in place bylaw number 176 2005, respecting the control and licensing of dogs and kennels, and the bylaw number 66-2004, which governs the use of municipal parks and prohibits dogs running at large, except as provided in off-leash facilities. And whereas staff has developed a policy to serve as framework containing guidelines governing the development and locations of an off-leash recreation area for the municipality of Chatham-Kent, and whereas some residents in Blenheim has shown interest in the potential location in Blenheim, South Kent, therefore be it resolved that administration investigate and identify if any suitable locations that meet site requirements as set out in said guidelines in the community of Blenheim. And the report include how the current successful dog parks are funded and facilitated, and the report be included on the May 31st meeting of council.
Councillor Bondy.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Well, those are two tough acts to follow. I, Councillor Michael Bondy, hereby provide notice that I will bring forward the following motion at the next council meeting for discussion and voting. That council retain the firm Grant Thornton to conduct an audit and analysis of the municipality of Chatham-Kent staffing levels, return on investment of existing departmental structures, and any other aspects of the organization concerning the business of the municipality that the firm believes warrants examination. This, unlike an internal service review, will be executed by a neutral, arm's-length consulting firm. The results of the review will be brought back to council and the CAO in the form of recommendations upon which council can choose or not choose to accept and take action. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. This one doesn't have a date on it. I'm going to work with staff in regards to when to come back, but I am going to bring it forward to the next meeting for discussion. Whereas I, Councillor Sakachi, here provide notice that I'll be bringing the following motion forward on the next meeting of council. Whereas the municipality of Chatham-Kent Council passed a consolidated business licensing bylaw number 178-2015 that defines day sales as a sale of goods for 1 to 3 day consecutive periods for one specific location, such as, but not limited to, a parking lot, a service station lot, or a vacant commercial lot, where the use is permitted in the municipality's zoning bylaw and regulates day sales, door-to-door sales, and salesperson. Therefore, be it resolved that administration further investigate the day sales license type of the current consolidated business licensing bylaw to potentially include an annual license and fee, multiple locations, mobile sales, and Chatham-Kent resident fee.
Okay, we'll move to closed session reports. Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you, and through the mayor, all were present tonight at our meeting for the closed session, so I'll move that council receive information on potential litigation advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose with regard to policy decisions and discretionary bylaws, section 239, 2E and F of the Municipal Act, and advice that was subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose with regard to Erie Shore Drive, section 239, 2F of the Municipal Act 2001.
Councillor Crew, can I get you to second that, please?
Second.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes.
Okay, Councillor Kirkwood White, there's one item that you wanted to pull from the communication items, item 2G, if you'd like to discuss that, and then we'll put a motion to accept all of them.
All right. Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question for Chief Case with regard to a number of resolutions that were proposed by numerous municipalities with regard to the provincial government's decision to close the Ontario Fire College in Gravenhurst. And I was wondering if he could provide us with an indication of what impact that closure would have on training opportunities for our local firefighters.
Thank you, Councillor. And through you, Mr. Mayor, we have sent a few officers to the Ontario Fire College over the past 3 years, around 25, mostly for fire prevention training, some officer training. In the same period, our internal training officers, and as you recall, Council granted the department a second training officer in the budget of 2017. We have literally trained hundreds of our firefighters internally. So in terms of the distance travel to the Ontario Fire College and the potential for us to use regional training centres, we propose that this should have a minimal impact on Chatham-Kent. However, for those smaller departments that are closer to the Ontario Fire College, this is going to be quite a difficult thing for them to manage. So as always, it's in the lap of council, but my assessment of the situation is that the closure of the Ontario Fire College site will have minimal impact upon the operations here in Chatham-Kent. I hope that answers your questions, Councillor.
It does. Thank you very much for your response.
Okay, Councillor Kirkbride, can I motion to accept the communication items? Second, and Councillor Thompson, could you second it, please?
Absolutely.
Seeing no other questions, motion, anyone opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. The non-agenda business. Councillor Wright, followed by Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I would like to congratulate on behalf of Lower Thames Conservation Authority to Trevor Thompson for being elected as the new chair over the board of directors. Thanks, Trevor, for accepting this position.
Councillor McGrail, followed by Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just want to comment real quick about the great feedback I got about this weekend and the ease of getting the COVID-19 shot. Now, I have also been asked by fellow citizens, is there any kind of volunteer opportunities, April? As in, you know, one was like, I can answer a phone, right? If phones are needed. Is there any kind of opportunities that are out there for the average person to help out? And if there is, who do they get a hold of?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. We are working with Chatham-Kent Health Alliance. They have a very robust volunteer program and are really leading the charge for volunteers working at the vaccination center. So what I would recommend to any of our citizens who would like to submit their name and go through the process to volunteer, that they go to the Chatham-Kent Health Alliance's website, and there is a posting there where they are accepting applications for this role. We are in need of volunteers for sure. Vaccine clinics will go on for some time over the next several months, and it would be nice to have a nice robust volunteer system. Volunteers are really needed to help navigate people through the clinic. They help with getting from point A to point B and then back out the doors again. So certainly they have been so valuable to our team to be able to assist them with their mandate to get as many vaccinations done as we possibly can. So I hope that helps.
It does. Thank you very much.
Councillor Sagachi, followed by Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just wanted, while April was just on the floor there. I did want to just kind of, I know that the whole team has been doing a miraculous job at public health through this last year, and you know, all the challenges we face. But I just wanted to publicly give Dr. Reed just some recognition over the, you know, a course of the year, and you know, even this weekend there was a lot of you know, questions, concerns, just people kind of, you know, trying to figure things out. And over the course of the year, Dr. Reed has just been amazing at responding back to, you know, our concerns. She's answered calls from myself after hours, and she's always so diligent and helpful. And I really think that, you know, I just really wanted to personally thank her publicly on all the help and the support that she just not only gives council, but gives our community. And I honestly couldn't think of a better person for the position. And I just wanted to direct a quick question to Mr. Kelly. This is not something normally I would ask in open, but Mr. Kelly, I did want to ask about Nichols Park in Blenheim. I've asked this question on the floor a couple times, and I've asked this question to staff prior, and now there's a group getting together to find out kind of what's going on there. 2 years ago, it was impacted by a traffic accident, and the playground equipment was damaged. And as mentioned, the kind of the public are starting to conversate together in a group now, because it has been 2 years. Is this something that requires a motion from you know, the floor in regards to secure more funds to fix something that's been a prevalent part of our community for the 42 years that I've been there? And just kind of wanted to touch base on the protocol of that, because it was something that you know, it was there and was damaged and not going to be covered through insurance, to my knowledge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is correct. It was not covered through insurance. In 2020, though, we came forward with a report to council, and you authorized the replacement of that equipment. So actually, we just received the bids this week, and we're going through that process. We hope the playground will be installed by June. And my apologies for the delay. It was COVID-based. We had issues with supply base, et cetera. Just getting a response, but we're through that now. We have the tenders, we're reviewing them actually this week, and from there we'll be moving forward with the sourcing and the actual installation again by June of this year. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And I think all the questions and concerns was about the time, and that I will make sure I relate it to the group that is a predominant aspect of COVID. And lastly, Mr. Kelly, directed to yourself, I haven't had a chance to read the recent emails from Mr. Bray. Just a quick question on behalf of the community. Since we're moving into a different zone this week, is there any conversation, and if I missed it, I do apologize, is there any conversation about potentially extending our arena, you know, the longevity of keeping the ice in, if we're able to, due to the factors that happened this year?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So normally our contracts run till the end of March, and with some of our arenas, they're not very well insulated. So any time past March, we have some real concerns about maintaining the quality of the ice. So at this time, that applies to really 4 arenas. Wallaceburg is converted to a lacrosse facility, basically. And then there's Richtown, Bothwell, and also Erickson. Those are our arenas that are really not very well insulated, and we can't maintain the quality of the ice much past March. So as our plan on the other 6 arenas within the community, we're working very closely with the user groups right now. We're certainly open to extend that if there is a demand, and that's what we're trying to figure out right now. Some of the groups have expressed interest in renting ice in April and even into May. And if we can have a sufficient amount of usage, we would certainly entertain that. And that's our plan right now. We're just working through that demand, seeing where we can accommodate. And I suspect that you'll see some of those rinks open at least in April and potentially into May as well. When it comes to one of the Thames Campus Arena, typically it's almost a 10-month arena. We would only shut it down in the June and July time period. We would also look at, typically that is our best arena for overall efficiency, cost, and maintaining our efficiency there as far as energy usage. So we're also looking at that to restart that as an ice facility beginning potentially earlier than then August, potentially. We're still looking at that. Again, all based on the demand and how many people wish to rent it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for the floor, Mayor Caniff, and thank you for the response, Mr. Kelly.
You're welcome.
Councillor Harrigan, followed by Councillor Latimer.
Mayor Caniff, Councillor Sakashi asked the questions that I had related to arenas. Thank you.
Perfect. Councillor Latimer.
Thank you. For those who may not have seen the media release today, I wanted to speak about the annual Senior Expo and Achievement Awards ceremony being canceled for 2021, with the award nominations being launched or delayed, but launched June 14th, which is during the Seniors Month in Ontario. This, of course, is due to the ongoing pandemic and vaccination scheduling uncertainty, and the committee is hopeful that the Expo and Achievement Awards celebration will return once more in 2022 and held at the Blenheim Arena, and with a time when residents can gather safely again to celebrate our older adult volunteers.
All right, thank you. The first and second readings, Councillor Solomon, Councillor B. McGregor.
I move first and second reading.
Okay, move first and second. Okay, Councillor B. McGregor.
Seconded.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Councillor Foss, Councillor Pinsnow, can I get you to put for the third and final reading?
So moved.
So seconded.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Councillor C. McGregor, resolution of council.
Thank you. And through the mayor, I would move that Chatham-Kent Council adjourn to its next meeting to be held on Monday, March 8th, 2021, and that Chatham-Kent Council authorize itself to meet in closed session on that day to discuss any matters permitted by the Municipal Act.
Councillor Wright, can I get you to second that, please?
I'll second it.
Anyone opposed to ending this meeting? I'll give you at least 3 seconds to think about that. Hearing none, we'll call it a night. Thanks, everyone, and stay safe.